Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Hare Krishna, it's February 17th, 2025. Today is the appearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Goswami Thakur. We're going to study Sri-Brahma-Samhita, Chapter 5, Text 1. Chapter 5, Text 1. The standard that we practically never veer from is in the programs. We read directly from Srila Prabhupada. So today's a rare exception. We're reading, this is a translation and purport of Brahma Samhita from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur. And Srila Prabhupada, he gave us this book. He gave us this. Bhaktisiddhanta wrote in several languages. He wrote in Hindi, Bengali, Sanskrit, and English. And so this is a translation in English. And Prabhupada did directly give it to us. And so, of course, it's his appearance day. We're going to read this morning. Those of you who are here at like 5 a.m., we read for like about 20, 25 minutes. We read from a lecture from Srila Prabhupada has many lectures on the appearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati. So we read a few pages, some pastimes of Bhaktisiddhanta's early, from his infant years. When he was born, the umbilical cord was wrapped around his neck in the same form as a Brahmin thread. And we read some other pastimes too, like at 3 years old, he took a mango that wasn't offered yet. And then his father, kind of tried to teach him a lesson. No, we don't do that. But Bhaktisiddhanta took it so seriously that he made a vow that he'll never eat a mango. And at 3 years old, he made a vow, and he followed it. He never consumed mango prasad, because he always considered, I'm an offender. And he was 3 years old, but still that he was so strict with himself. So we're going to read from Sri Brahma-Samhita, Text 1. I say James and I'm here with Damayanti, Bhakti Rose, and Bhakti James. And so yes, James asked, what is Brahma-Samhita, like that? So Brahma-Samhita actually has 100 chapters, but only one chapter exists, has come down through the ages, and that's chapter 5. And this chapter, when Lord Chaitanya was touring South India, this is described in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita in, I think, the Adi Keshava temple, but in some temple in South India, in like some old storage room, he found an original manuscript of chapter 5 of the Bhagavad Gita, of the Brahma Samhita. So that's the one chapter we have. And it's 62 text, 62 verses, and kind of in the middle, text 29 to 55, 27 text in the middle. It's those verses that all 27 texts in a row that all end Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So Brahma Samhita, like Gita means song, Samhita means song. So this is the song of Brahma. Although these these first verses are kind of a prelude to before Brahma gets, well, on the cover here, we have Krishna playing his flute, and through his flute, he reveals all the Vedas into the heart of Brahma, Tene Brahma Rida, heart, into the heart of Brahma, Tene Brahma Rida, Ya Adi Kavye, Yantiyat Suraya. And so Brahma gets all this, the Vedas revealed, and then he has a palpable vision of Krishna and Goloka Vrindavan, and he comes out with all those Govinda Madi Purusham verses, starting with the first one. Chintamani prakarasat masu kalpa vriksha laksha viteshu surabira vipalayantam Lakshmi sahasrasata sambrahma sevyamanam Govinda Madi Purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor, who is tending the cows, yielding all desires in abodes built of spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of purpose trees and served with great reverence and affection by hundreds and thousands of Lakshmis or gopis. Okay, beautiful spiritual vision, spiritual form, spiritual flavor, spiritual fragrance, spiritual personality, spiritual color, spiritual vibrance. So the first text, Brahma-Samhita, this is really from Srila Vyasadeva. Yesterday we read the realizations of Vyasadeva that led him to reveal the Bhagavatam. So this first text, also yesterday, James, Rose, and I, we had like an extended morning program, and we absorbed ourselves in a verse from Bhagavad Gita, 2.13, Dehinosmi nita dehe komaram yovanam jara tata dehantara praptir dirastatra namuyati, as the embodied soul continually passes in this body from childhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at the time of death. The self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. So that's a text Prabhupada quotes so much. So this first verse of Brahma-Samhita, Prabhupada quotes it a lot. So like, if you're into learning verses, this is a fine one. All of the verses in all these literatures are completely transcendental, and some verses Prabhupada considered particularly important for us, like the Dihinosmin verse and this one. Actually, there's some, there's so many thousands of lectures from Srila Prabhupada, and he goes through the chanting with his students, and there are some where Prabhupada makes it clear, because he chants and he leads the chant and others lead the chanting, and Prabhupada makes it clear that the idea is that by being absorbed, that part of morning program in the verse, and Prabhupada says, and then you've learned the verse and you've memorized it and you take it with you through the rest of the day and you have it for your whole life. So Prabhupada was sort of maybe incorrectly assuming that we're Shrutidars like him and everyone from the Vedic age, but that was Prabhupada's expectation, that we absorb ourselves in the verse and we have it with us through the whole day. And so we can aspire towards that. So text one, Brahma-Samhita, we'll start with the Sanskrit words responsively. Ishvara, Parama, Krishna, Satchidananda Vigraha, Anadir, Adir, Govinda, Sarvakarana Karanam, Ishvara Parama Krishna, Satchidananda Vigraha, Anadir Govinda, Sarvakarana Karanam, Ishvara Parama Krishna, Satchidananda Vigraha, Nadir Govinda, Sarvakarana Karanam, Ishvara Parama Krishna, Satchidananda Vigraha, Nadir Govinda, Sarvakarana Karanam, Ishvara Parama Krishna, Satchidananda Vigraha, Anadir Govinda, Sarvakarana Karanam,
Ishvara Parama Krishna,
Ishvara Parama Krishna,
Satchidananda Vigraha,
Satchidananda Vigraha,
Anadir Govinda,
Anadir Govinda,
Sarva Karana Karanam,
Sarvakarana Karanam,
Ishvara Parama Krishna,
Ishvara Parama Krishna,
Satchidananda Vigraha.
Satchidananda Vigraha.
Dhira Dhira Govinda.
Anadir Adir Govinda.
Karana Karanam.
Sarva Karana Karanam. Would anyone online like to lead the chanting of the verse? Brahma-Samhita, chapter 5, text 1.
Ishvara Parama Krishna
Ishvara Parama Krishna.
Satchitananda Vigraha
Satchidananda Vigraha.
Anadiradir Govinda
Anadir Adir Govinda.
Sarva Karana Karanam.
Sarva Karana Karanam. Okay, so we'll look at the word meanings. Ishvara,
Ishvara.
the controller.
Controller.
Parama,
Parama.
supreme.
Supreme.
Krishna,
Krishna.
Lord Krishna.
Lord Krishna.
Sat,
Sat.
comprising eternal existence.
Comprising eternal existence.
Chit,
Chit.
absolute knowledge.
Absolute knowledge.
Ananda,
Ananda.
an absolute bliss.
An absolute bliss.
Vigraha,
Vigraha.
whose form.
Whose form.
Anadi, without beginning.
Without beginning.
Adi,
Adi.
the origin.
The origin.
Govinda,
Govinda.
Lord Govinda.
Lord Govinda.
Sarva Karana Karanam,
Sarva Karana Karanam.
the cause of all causes.
The cause of all causes.
Translation: Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme Godhead. He has an eternal blissful spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, and he is the prime cause of all causes. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Goswami Maharaj. Again, this is the book by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta that Srila Prabhupada gave to us, asked his followers to publish and for us to read. So we'll read the purport by Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati, and I suggest that you brace yourselves. I'll put it that way. Krishna is the exalted supreme entity having his eternal name, eternal form, eternal attribution, and eternal pastimes. The very name Krishna implies his love-attracting designation, expressing by his eternal nomenclature the acme of entity. Acme, pinnacle, the topmost entity. We need to kind of translate Bhaktisiddhanta's English. We can appreciate Prabhupada because he, in a sense, he gave us Bhaktisiddhanta in a way that for most of us, maybe all of us, is more accessible. The acme of entity. His eternal, beautiful, heavenly blue-tinged body, glowing with the intensity of ever-existing knowledge, has a flute in both hands. As his inconceivable spiritual energy is all extending, still he maintains his all-charming medium size by his qualifying spiritual instrumentals. His all-accommodating spiritual subjectivity is nicely manifested in his eternal form. The concentrated all-time presence, uncovered knowledge, and inebriating felicity have their beauty in him. The mundane manifestive portion of his own self is known as all-pervading Paramatma, Ishvara, superior Lord, or Vishnu, all-fostering. Hence it is evident that Krishna is sole supreme Godhead. His unrivaled or unique spiritual body of super excellent charm is eternally unveiled with innumerable spiritual instrumentals, senses, and unreckonable attributes, keeping their signifying location properly, adjusting at the same time by his inconceivable conciliative powers. This beautiful spiritual figure is identical with Krishna, and the spiritual entity of Krishna is identical with his own figure. The very intensely blended entity of eternal presence, a felicitous cognition, is the charming, targeted, holding, or transcendental icon. It follows that the conception of the indistinguishable, formless magnitude Brahman, which is an indolent, lax presentment mint of cognitive bliss is merely a penumbra of intensely blended glow of the three concomitants vis-a-vis the blissful, the substantive, and the cognitive. This transcendental manifestive icon Krishna in his original face is primordial background of magnitudinal infinite Brahman and of the all-pervasive oversoul. Krishna, as truly visioned in his variegated pastimes, such as owner of transcendental cows, chief of cowherds, consort of milkmaids, ruler of the terrestrial abode Gokula, an object of worship by transcendental residents of Goloka beauties, is Govinda. He is the root cause of all causes, who are the predominating and predominated agents of the universe. The glance of his projected fractional portion is the sacred originating water vis-a-vis the personal oversoul or Paramatma, gives rise to a secondary potency, nature, who creates this mundane universe. This oversoul's intermediate energy brings forth the individual souls analogously to the emanated rays of the sun. This book is a treatise of Krishna, so the preamble is enacted by chanting his name in the beginning. Hare Krishna. Bhaktisiddhanta. Okay, so we'll chant a few more mantras to continue to invoke auspicious atmosphere in our discussion. Om Anjanatirmirandasya Gnanjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Kadammayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaraganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Saganalalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshware Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpata Yubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. And we'll also recite the 4 pranam mantras for Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati, since today is his appearance day. We use the term appearance day. Sometimes Prabhupada will use the term birthday, the birthday of Krishna, like that. But more technically, it's appearance day, to distinguish from a birthday of an ordinary conditioned soul like myself, who we're forced to take birth according to our material desires, and we get a particular body with particular karma, forced by the modes of nature. So that's different, distinct from the pure devotees, or Krishna himself in his different expansions. They choose to appear. We gave the analogy yesterday. I think everyone here, yesterday night, we gave the analogy of like the prison. The warden or the governor or the president, they might choose to visit the prison. They choose to appear there. They're not forced to enter the prison. They can leave when they choose. They're there on a mercy mission. So for these pure devotees of Krishna, appearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvatiti Namine I offer my respectful obeisances unto His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati, who is very dear to Lord Krishna, having taken shelter at his lotus feet. Sri Varshabhanavi Devi Daitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances to Sri Varshabhanavi Devi Daita Das. That's another name of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati, who is favored by Srimati Radharani and who is the ocean of transcendental mercy and the deliverer of the science of Krishna. Madhuryo Jvala Premadya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, the personified energy of Sri Chaitanya's mercy, who delivered devotional service which is enriched with conjugal love of Radha and Krishna, coming exactly in the line of revelation of Srila Rupa Goswami. Namaste Gauravani Shri Mortaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudha Pasidanta Dvantaharine. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, who are the personified teachings of Lord Chaitanya. You are the deliverer of the fallen souls. You do not tolerate any statement which is against the teachings of devotional service enunciated by Srila Rupa Goswami. This morning, just before japa, after Nrsingadev mantras, we read some excerpts of some talks from Srila Prabhupada about Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and Prabhupada emphasizes how Srila Bhakti, because back there in the late 1800s into the early 1900s, what was going in the name of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya, it was very deplorable. It was in this very decadent, degraded state, and it was being deviated in very perverse ways. That's still true today. We mentioned that this morning. But anyhow, so Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, he prayed to Lord Chaitanya. Prabhupada terms it, send a member of your staff, a close staff in your office. Send a member of your staff to like clean things up here. And then Lord Chaitanya sent Bhaktisiddhanta. When Bhaktisiddhanta was born there in the 1860s, the 1870s, the umbilical cord was wrapped around his body in the shape of a Brahmin thread, and many indications like that. And so we read from Srila Prabhupada about Bhaktisiddhanta here in our class and discussion. We're focusing on direct writing from Bhaktisiddhanta, his translation and purport to the first verse of Brahma-Samhita chapter 5. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Govinda Sarva Karanam. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme Godhead. He has an eternal, blissful, spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, and he is the prime cause of all causes. Yeah. So this gets to like distinction between spirit and matter. So Bhaktisiddhanta's English is very sophisticated, and so he was writing for a particular class of people, and so these pure devotee representatives of God, of Krishna, they appear and they give self-realization knowledge and knowledge of God and how to develop love of God according to time and circumstance, just like an example commonly used. An expert teacher is not just like here's the information. An expert teacher is connecting personally, right? So oh, this child or this group of children, if get them moving, and then they're ready to receive the knowledge. Or this child, just kind of touch their hand, make eye contact, and then they're ready to see. This child responds to visual cues, right? So we would expect that the supreme entity, as Bhaktisiddhanta puts it, the acme of entity, acme, the pinnacle of all existence. The supreme person, God, would be a high-level teacher, a high-level educator. And so God is always meeting us, his children, where we're at, while encouraging us from where we're at to progress. And so Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is writing for a particular audience. And so these pure devotees of Krishna, they might appear in a particular culture, but they're enacting their transcendental mission through that culture. We've given the example, like an ignorant person might think the warden or the governor visiting the prison, they have to eat that food just like everyone. No, they don't have to. So we might see that through implied culture, but the pure devotee, Jesus or Srila Prabhupada or Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, they're never influenced by any mundane culture. And it's a very relevant, it's such an important principle, because more and more, unfortunately, actually last year, some of you are familiar, I published a book entitled Srila Prabhupada Shastra, Perspectives on the Infallibility of Srila Prabhupada, because more and more we're hearing, including and especially from those who are identified as followers of Srila Prabhupada, scholars about Srila Prabhupada, and they're just talking very openly about Srila Prabhupada had this defective idea, and he was influenced by mundane Bengali culture in this way and that way. So it's very painful, sad, and so the pure devotee, like Krishna himself, they might enact and share their transcendental pastimes and mission through what to us seems like a particular mundane culture, but they're completely transcendental. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati, he was a what's called a Naistiki brahmachari, meaning he was a lifelong celibate, never had any intimate connection with women, just lifelong celibate. And just for some contrast, so his biological father, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who's also a pure devotee, Acharya in our line, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, had 13 children, and he was very involved with the British political system, and he was a judge in the courts, and he's actually, we mentioned that this morning. Because here we are, like we just take it for granted. We're having our home programs, and we're having our home programs here in our homes, right? And we're in the United States or Europe, and we're having our home programs. The six Goswamis, kind of there about 450, 500 years ago, following Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya did not establish temples. His followers, the six Goswamis, established, very thriving temples. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that's Bhaktisiddhanta's father, he established these home programs. He called it the Nam Hat program. So that the home programs. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur had 13 children, was very involved with the world and finances and money, administration, politics. He was a judge. We're just giving that as a contrast. That, so a pure devotee, empowered devotee of Krishna is lifelong celibate like Bhaktisiddhanta. Well, doesn't need it's not dependent on an external form. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he was known as the walking encyclopedia. Just knew everything about anything. We get some glimpse of that just in the brief purport we read. So he was he was a renowned astronomer and astrologer and mathematician. He was just renowned like that. His spiritual master, Gaurkishore Das Babaji, was illiterate. Gaurkishore Das Babaji was illiterate. Now, Gaurkishore Das Babaji, he knew all the philosophy, and he would spontaneously give erudite, nuanced, subtle responses and lectures. He knew all the philosophy. He was completely self-realized. But externally, I'm not even sure if he could sign his name. and he was spiritual master of Bhaktisiddhanta, who is the, like the greatest scholar of that age. Srila Prabhupada's the greatest Vedic scholar of the modern age. So just to give, so that what does a pure devotee of God, it needs to look like this, it needs to look like, no, it's not dependent on anything material, not dependent on anything material, okay? On whether someone's in household life, in family life, with lots of children, or lifelong celibate, or has written dozens and hundreds of books, or is illiterate. It's dependent. What's the condition of the heart? What's the condition of the heart? How godly, how pure is the heart? That's the criterion, not anything external. So in the 1930s, Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master Srila Prabhupada, he wrote an offering. He wrote some poetic offering to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and in that offering, well, Bhaktisiddhanta was so moved by it. One particular stanza, Bhaktisiddhanta particularly pointed out that, like, this particular stanza, my student, follower, disciple, Abhay Charan, Srila Prabhupada wasn't known as Srila Prabhupada, he was known as Abhay Charan. Actually, his parents gave him the name Abhay Charan, and then Bhaktisiddhanta at the time of initiation extended that name to Abhay Charanarvindam. Both of them mean fearless at the lotus feet of Krishna. And so he said, this particular couplet, this particular stanza shows such profound, elegant and eloquent grasp of my mission. And the stanza is, absolute is sentient, thou hast proved. Impersonal calamity, thou hast moved. I'll say it again. Absolute is sentient, thou hast proved. Impersonal calamity, thou hast moved. Okay. So it's just like, it's so concise and so potent and powerful. So that stands from Prabhupada, for me, that so directly relates to what we just read. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchitananda Vigra Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. So Krishna, so it's indicating. So absolute is sentient. So this is Srila Prabhupada writing with affection and devotion, an offering to his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Sentient means senses. Sentient means senses. So the absolute, which means the supreme, the God. When we say absolute, that which is true in all time and space. Examples we commonly use, if I say, I'm David Wolf, 64 years old, from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So that's not absolute truth. Was I David Wolf from Philadelphia 100 years ago? Will I be David Wolf from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania 1,000,000 years from now? No. So I'm not this body. I'm eternal spirit soul. I'm a servant of God, a servant of Krishna. That's absolute truth. It's good in all time and space. It's true, it's true, good and beautiful in all time and space. So as spirit souls, we're only satisfied by that which is eternal and absolute. Okay. So absolute is sentient, means the very substratum of all existence. Okay. No, so we start, how do we start these classes? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. That's actually the first line of the first verse of the 18,000 verse Srimad Bhagavatam. The translation, well, there's a few translations. The one Prabhupada uses mostly is, O my Lord, Sri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. All right, so all-pervading personality, that can seem like a contradiction, right? Because like a person, well, we have experience of persons. I'm a person. I'm here. I'm not there. I'm not all-pervading. You're a person. You're there. You're not there. Okay, but this is transcendental spiritual personhood. So Vasudeva or Vishnu indicates, and Bhaktisiddhanta describes that here in somewhat sophisticated language, and indicates a person, an all-pervading person, an all-pervading person. It's described later in the Brahma-Samhita. Eko pyasora chaitum jagadanda koti yachaktyasti jagadanda chayayaranda andantarasta paramanu chayantarastam Govindamadi pusham tamaham bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who exists in fullness in every atom. In every atom. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says several times in Bhagavad Gita, Sarvasya Jaham Vidisa Nivisto, I am situated in the heart of all living entities. When it says every atom, there's a lecture where Prabhupada says, if we go more minutely than the atom, Prabhupada says, the protons, the electrons, you go more, and you can keep dividing the subatomic particles. Krishna's the essence of that. He's greater than the greatest, smaller than the smallest. Yeah, even if we look at like this different theories of science, like what's they're looking for like the singularity, the Big Bang, the singularity, the Big Bang. Okay, so so what this? Yeah, well, it's like it's this point that's kind of like infinitely small, smaller than this, and it's more powerful, and it exists beyond time and before time. So they're looking for Krishna. They won't call it that, but that's a description of Krishna, smaller than the smallest, greater than the great, existing beyond time, the source of everything, Sarva Karana Karana. So they're looking for Krishna, of course, out of envy, will hesitate to call it God or Krishna. But of course, now there is something called the God particle, like that. So, okay, let's continue with this. So, because often, there's talk, I know in our transformative communication environments, personal growth, transformation, about a deep conversation, go deep within yourself. Now, we quoted the verse earlier, Dehinosmi Nyata Dehe Komaram Yorvinam Jura, right? So we're not the body. To the extent that we're misidentifying, the eternal spiritual self we are with the temporary external gross body, it's quite external. It's not essential. It's not deep. As I stayed up really late at night, had a deep conversation. To the extent we're identifying with this gross matter, it's not deep. It's superficial. Bhagavad Gita describes Indriyani Pranyora Indriyabhya Pramana Manasas Tubra Bude Yo Budi Manasas Tupara Bude Yo Bude Paratastusa. Okay, then a little more subtle than the gross body is the subtle matter. Subtle matter, that's mind, intellect, and material ego. Material ego. There is spiritual ego. Ego essentially means a sense of who we are. So to the extent that I think I'm David Wolf from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, I'm 64 years old, that's false ego. False ego, a false sense of who I am. So in many attempts at spiritual life, the idea is get rid of ego, get rid of ego. Brahma-Samhita, Bhagavad Gita, it's not about get rid of ego. Get rid of false ego and cultivate realization of, real ego. I'm spirit soul, I'm a servant of Krishna. That's who I am, that's real ego. We don't want to annihilate real ego. Okay, so like the French philosopher Descartes famously said, I think, therefore I am. He had understanding, if we read his discourses, he's not the finger, he's not the leg, he's not the body. He didn't quite seem to get that he's not the mind, like he's identifying the self with the thinking. So it's a little more towards the essence, then more subtle than the material mind. And of course, we can spiritualize the material mind, we can spiritualize the material tongue, we can spiritualize the material eyes by engaging the senses in bhakti. And that's how we spiritualize the world, starting with our own body. Here, Bhaktisiddhanta, he has a section in the purport we just read. He indicates Krishna's form is non-different from Krishna. Similarly, that's a meaning of absolute. Namo Chintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purna Shuddha Nityamukta Binatvan Namanamina. That Krishna is non-different from his name, his form, his personality, his paraphernalia. So that's why when we chant the names of God, any names, any bona fide names of God, we chant the names of God, then we chant this verse, Ishvara Pama Krishna Satchitananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. All these mantras, they reveal truth. They reveal absolute truth. And simultaneously, the vibration itself is non-different from the truth it reveals. That's why whatever we understand cognitively, and we want to endeavor to understand things intellect, whatever we understand or not, we're transformed, the heart's impacted because the vibration reveals truth and is identical with the truth it reveals. And same with Krishna's form. The form is absolute truth. It's not temporary, just like this form. You know, here, as far as the form of the body, we're not in the same body we had when we walked through the door this morning, when the morning program started. 45, the atoms have changed. The atoms have changed. It's all ephemeral. Krishna's form is eternal and absolute. And just by using our eyes to see the form of Krishna or Krishna's pure devotees, the form reveals absolute truth and it's non-different from the truth it reveals. It's spiritual quality, different than material quality. Krishna addresses this in Bhagavad Gita, Nasato vijite bhavo, na bhavo vijite sata, ubayor apidrishtontas tanyos tattvadarshi. Okay, so, all right, so the more subtle than mind, intellect, or even material ego, then there's the oneness of spirit, more subtle than that, the spirit soul, more subtle than that, the super soul. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Atava bo naitena kim gyatena tavarjuna vistabhyam idam kritsnam ekam senostito jagat. Krishna says, okay, nature is amazing, nature is wonderful, and Krishna gives like dozens of examples of how to realize God in nature. And then Krishna says, but in a sense, what's the point? He says, because with a single fragment of myself, a fragment of a fragment of a portion of a portion, I pervade and support this entire universe. Krishna is referencing there, the super soul within the heart of all living entities is an expansion of God called the super soul. And then more subtle than the super soul is the source of the super soul, Krishna himself. So only when we get to the super soul, Krishna, only when that's the center of our consciousness and our conversations, then we're getting essential, then we're getting deep. Everything else is relatively superfluous. So at the very substratum of all existence, is there the void, the great nothingness? Is there matter, the subatomic particles? No, Brahma-Samhita, Bhagavad Gita is saying no. And these are all these pseudo or incomplete philosophies are addressed in these ancient wisdom literatures. At the very substratum of existence, is it the impersonal white light? No. The very substratum, the very foundation of existence is transcendental personhood, Vasudeva, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And that's the source of true satisfaction. That's the source of true satisfaction. And so, again, so absolute is sentient, thou hast proved. Absolute has senses, so important. Because somebody goes, yeah, I believe in spirit, even God's spirit. Whoa, okay. Well, what's that mean for you practically? Nothing. I mean, I just do what I do, whatever, but it's cool to say, spirit, whoa. But follow me here. Absolute is senses. Senses means absolute is sentient. Just like I have senses, and there are different tastes that my tongue likes and tastes my tongue don't. And there's different forms and colors that I find beautiful and attractive, and that I find not pretty at all and not attractive. And there's different sounds that I like and that I don't like, because we're sentient entities. So it means we have likes and dislikes. So similarly with the absolute. So bhakti means transferring our propensity for service rather than to serve our senses, not but my body and ego's likes and dislikes. How can I please Krishna? How can I please God? Because there are things we can do, just like discussing Brahma-Samhita and Srimad-Bhagavatam, that are pleasing. And there are things we can do that are not pleasing. Sometimes we'll hear, so that's why absolute is sentient. Otherwise, in the name of spirituality, God, it just becomes a decadent exercise in vapid meaninglessness. Okay? Until you get, oh, God's a person with likes and dislikes. Sometimes we hear, whatever I do, God loves me. Well, okay, but that's really not the point. Yeah, of course. So, yeah, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has likes and dislikes, senses. Of course, God is always loving us. Krishna is always loving us. This simple analogy, like a parent will always love their children and have compassion and love for their children. Whatever the child does that mean whatever the child does, the parent is always pleased? No. There are some things the child could do that endears them to the parent, and other things the child could do is like, no, that's not accept. That makes me angry, and I'm very unhappy about that. No, you just destroyed that. Why did you hit your sister? No, I'm not happy about that. Okay. Now, the parent's always loving. Sometimes the love looks sweet and nurturing. Sometimes the love looks like discipline. I mean, the love can look in different ways. So it's not about God. It's not about God will always love him. Yeah, sure, true. Okay, nice, true. But the question is, what am I doing to show that I'm sincere to love God, or at least to develop some sparks of love for God? So it means absolute is sentient. God's a person. And we get to know from the pure devotee of God what I can do in all spheres of life, whether it's my relationship with eating, sleeping, money management, career, relationships, communication, what I can do in all, how I use my electronic devices. There are ways we can use in a way that please the senses of Krishna and ways that don't please the senses of Krishna. Krishna always loves us. It's always there. It's not like this, God becomes hateful or something like that. Always compassionate. And sometimes that compassion can look like banging us on the head with his flute, like, wake up, come on. And so we talked yesterday about the GPS system, that sort of thing. So always giving us a message if we made a wrong turn. Right, absolute sentient, thou hast proved. Impersonal calamity, thou hast moved. We began to address that. Because once we take the person away from Godhead, once we remove the person away from Godhead, then it just becomes a catastrophe, a calamity where in the name of spirituality, God, we can do, and there's all this decadence and sub-animal behavior, and it can all be done in the name of God. We referenced that this morning after japa when we read some of Prabhupada's excerpts about Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. We referenced some unfortunate examples of that sort of thing. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was so pleased with Srila Prabhupada, that particular couplet. He said, he understands my mission. And even though Srila Prabhupada at that time, he was not a prominent member of that community, but Bhaktisiddhanta said, this Abhay Charanarvindam, he's going to do everything. He understands things in the most essential way. And so I'll read the verse again. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Nadir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the Supreme Godhead. He has an eternal, blissful, spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin. And he is the prime cause of all causes. Ladini has some icons in relation to banging us on the head with his flute. Glad you appreciated that reference. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Right. So just, yeah, eternal blissful spiritual body. Maybe we haven't noticed. Our bodies are not eternal and blissful. Okay, maybe we've noticed. And so that's the same kind of like, it as common saying in personal transformation, we move by inspiration or desperation. So like the inspiration is just like, this is so blissful. This like, morning program. And yesterday we basically had like a 14-hour spiritual program and just bhakti, this is so blissful. I'm inspired to do more and more like that. And then the desperation is like to not avoid the pain, to get like, no, like this, like any square micrometer of our body could potentially be the source of unbearable agony. I don't mean to be depressing. It's just true. It's just true. Any square micrometer in our body. So just like, but the idea there, that's Krishna like banging us on the head with the flute. Like, come on, don't live your life in a way where you're not forced to accept another one of these. Live your life in a way where you get to have sarupya mukti, where we get our original spiritual body made of such Chidananda Vigraha is manifest. Hare Krishna. Thanks for giving your hearing to Sri-Brahma-Samhita. I welcome any comments or questions at this time. Back to James.
Yeah, I just felt in your like that last moment of you sharing, live our life in such a way that we don't have to take another body.
Yeah.
And that being, I'm just like throughout the talk, throughout the day, I just really feel like this being in this body in this material world and doing bhakti is hard. It's difficult.
It's hard
to choose this and not to choose material desire.
Yeah.
To ignore the disturbance of body and just put attention on Krishna. It's very difficult. And, but it's like I appreciate that sentiment of like do it, then come back, do it as hard. Do it as easy and life will be hard. Do it as hard and life will be easy.
Thanks for that.
If I don't do that and I just do what's easy, then I'm just gonna body after body after body after body, and then it's painful forever. And but if I choose to do what's hard like that, bhakti is difficult. Bhakti is difficult in this material world.
Yeah.
Then I have a chance to like actually liberate myself and find that sweetness of devotion to Krishna and not have to take body or take body and I'm not conditioned to it like Prabhupada, and yeah, I'm connecting with that.
Thanks very much for sharing that, James. Thanks very much. I appreciate that. The saying we often use, right? So if we're only willing to do what's easy, life will be hard. If we're ready to do what's hard, life will be easy. So yeah, in the material sphere, yeah, like it's the whole context is it's militantly opposed to us being intense about bhakti, and so to do what's hard, and then we get to then life is easy. Then we're freed from the prison. We get to associate with we get the eternal bodies full of eternal bliss. And yeah, that this is like it's an austerity. It's an austerity, and not just the world is opposed, but probably most of us were conditioned for millions or trillions of lifetimes with our material mind, our material desires. So it requires taking quite a stand. I was just listening to a lecture this morning before the morning program from Srila Prabhupada, and he's saying it is possible in one lifetime. It is possible in one lifetime to regain your spiritual body, pure devotion of Krishna, and that will require intense commitment, willingness to do what's hard consistently and steadily. I appreciate your comments and realizations. Bhakti Rosa. Yeah.
Hear from you. And thank you for the class and thank you all for your association. I've been reflecting because I've been attempting to practice bhakti yoga for 10.5 years.
Yeah.
And definitely having like lulls. I've had lulls and inspiration and enthusiasm. And time and again, what I find makes it like all worth it and not so hard is outreach for like
Outreach, yeah.
outreach for
Yeah.
Prabhupada. Like it gives me so much energy. It gives me a purpose to do the austerities. I feel like because there's like this compassion for other souls. I just want to share my experience, not so much like tell you what to do or anything, but like I don't have much inspiration to just do austerity. It's difficult to chant the rounds. I don't naturally have self-discipline prior to bhakti yoga. It's just like middle class America, snacking, eating.
Yeah.
What do you want to do next? What do I want to watch on this, what do I want to watch? It's like how I was trained. Like childhood was like, what do I want to eat? What do I want to watch? So it's like it's ridiculous. With no God in the picture, my whole childhood, just anything goes.
Yeah.
So it's difficult. And the thing that just like brightens the whole path of austerities is like serving Srila Prabhupada, like going to the street, chanting in the streets, talking to people about newcomers, like, like I came here today because I wanted to cross paths with you. Like you're here and I wanted to be in your association. Like it's not just and you know yourself. I wanted to celebrate to the Bhaktisiddhanta and everything. But I'm just like so enlightened by helping Prabhupada, helping the devotees bring souls to Krishna, seeing souls awaken, and it's just like it just like gives so much energy to the challenge of it, the personal transformational challenge. There's like this inner challenge, and then there's like helping others go through it too, and it just like gives it can be a really joyful process at the same time. That we're like, yeah, I'm suffering, but like there's a point to it and there's a meaning to it. And so yeah, you're gonna suffer one way or the other. You're gonna suffer materially from dealing with the karma of, whatever we did. Or like we're gonna suffer through consciously choosing I'm going to do austerity for God. And anyway, I'm just revisiting that whole realization with my niece Sydney, she's here online, and she's been coming to programs and hanging out for two weeks, and she's staying at our house with her son. I just feel like she's transforming my life by coming into my life, and maybe she feels the same way in a totally different way. But I'm like, oh, the temple should be cleaner. I'm like, oh, what's on the one? I want to read a book. I'm like, I'm just like really activated with enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And so I'm really grateful, and I just had to share that.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I feel moved by you sharing. There's like a connecting to service, and really like a compassionate spirit of service. And there's so many souls that are wanting something, and that that you have something to offer by introducing them to Srila Prabhupada and these teachings and chanting and singing kirtans. And you see how that moves people and how it actually makes a difference in lives. And I get that's like such a bright spot in the path for you that it inspires you to go deeper into the what is kind of a painful austerity. Like it can be a very difficult and painful suffering austerity, but it's like you're alleviated in that when you're focused on the service. Yeah, focused on bringing it to others.
Yeah, I think it's like 4 statements. Purity is the force.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
it like
There
that
is.
somehow related to-
Yeah,
I forget
it
what-
is. Purity is the force. Books are the basis. And utility is the principle, and preaching is the essence. Of course, the term preaching doesn't have a politically correct feel to it, but sharing, it's the essence.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. Yeah, preaching is the essence, and Prabhupada stated that. And Prabhupada's example, Prabhupada was completely blissfully situated in the Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan, a temple established by Srila Jiva Goswami. But he left this peaceful, spiritual, blissful situation out of compassion for us all around the world. And in that, and so you emphasizing outreach, Damayanti, that is completely Prabhupada's mood. It's the mood of Bhaktisiddhanta. Today's it's a mood of Prahlad Maharaj, the mood of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And Oh, preaching is the essence, and yeah, that's in common language, with love. The more you give, the more you have. It's true about this Krishna consciousness. It's unlike anything material, where, well, if I give $10, I have $10 less in material conception. So the scarcity conception. I'll just, yeah, that's so vital. That's so vital. It's myself. Okay, related to your saying, if we're whether you do what's hard in life, to organize, arrange, and host these home programs, it's hard. It's hard, and I've organized literally thousands of them. Well, since I've lived here, which is about 13 years, and I'm so happy that I've done every one. And but I'm just like, yes, I need to get the house together. Because I'm always doing my own program, but then with others, sharing with others, then my fulfillment is expanded. So what I'm saying is, yeah, I organize these programs completely for selfish reasons, fully for selfish reasons, because it's so sad, because we're connected with, I'm connected with sharing, and then there's, right towards the end of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, there is no one more dear to me than one who shares Bhagavad Gita. He said that, because one is to cultivate one who shares these principles in this practice. That's the servant who's most dear to me. Anandini.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for this class and the discussion. And I want to share something that I'm like contemplating on, not just recently, but recently maybe more. Hare Krishna. Nice to see you. Aloha. You were mentioning about, so we're embodied in a body that can experience so much suffering.
Yeah.
And I'm very connected to that right now, of how much of my life, and maybe everyone could say the same, how much of my life is suffering. There's so much suffering in all areas of life, and all, anywhere I look, I can see suffering. And then like yesterday after class yesterday, I was thinking, like, if I actually embrace the suffering, I can get so much wisdom. And most, like, my most maybe authentic, intense prayers came from suffering. And yeah, speaking about outreach and how that's also some kind of suffering, I'm thinking that's like the perfect, or how I can bring meaning to all the suffering, like to share like the wisdom and the realization that come from suffering, and then share with others and support others to come to realization of God, that there is Krishna who has a body, and that is all blissful, and we can also attain a body that is all blissful if we want and if we're sincere. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to share. And to think that it's all the suffering, it's Krishna's flute, that's far out to me. It sounds, the flute is really beautiful. It's a musical instrument.
Yeah.
So why is it so painful?
Okay. All right. A few things happening to me. Thanks for sharing, Anandini. And yeah, yesterday in evening program, we kind of did the GPS example, where like the experience of suffering, pain, shame, alienation, despair, depression, or whatever toxic, grungy stuff, kind of like there's a message there. And there was a lot of sharing from Vidur and Garuda, and kind of like it's like the GPS analogy. If we're if we're off, if we're out of our integrity meaning intensely living in unconditional devotion to Krishna, if we're out of our integrity, we're going to have this pain and suffering. And that's like, it's a sign to like, come on, wake up, make a U-turn, this isn't working. Now, as far as the Krishna banging us on, because sometimes Krishna can play his flutes and we hear these beautiful sounds like the Govinda Madi Pu Maham Bhajami, and Krishna banging us on the head with flute. Okay, I'm going to see too. So like, there's a verse Prabhupada sometimes quotes in reference to his own personal life from the 11th canto of Bhagavatam. Yasyaham anugrinami harishe tadanam shanai. And it says that, now, we don't see that this applies to Prabhupada, but that Krishna says, if my devotee is sincere, but is still attached to some material things, I'll take everything away, and then there's nothing left other than unconditional surrender. We can be reminded here of the prayers of Queen Kunti. She underwent a lot of tragedy and catastrophe in her life, and then she prayed to Krishna, bring me more catastrophe, because that's when I remember you most deeply. So we can be inspired by Queen Kunti. Look, I'm not like praying to Krishna for more catastrophe in my life, so I'm not imitating. But so I would say, like, for those who've like, or showing sincere devotion, then we can see kind of like the GPS signal and that sort of thing, the pain. We can see Krishna's getting directly involved, a tap on the head with the flute. Yo, come on, continue. Now, at the same time, for conditioned souls, and I certainly might be in that case, for conditioned souls who are just like, there's no bhakti, then it's just the mechanical laws of karma. Then it's just the machine of karma. And sometimes good karma, bad karma, like that. And of course, absolute good means whether it's so-called good or bad, I respond to it with deeper enthusiasm to free myself from the prison house, deeper inspiration to serve God with love and devotion. But for those who like aren't manifesting any bhakti, then it's probably not correct to say that the suffering is Krishna banging on the head with the flute. Then it's just like the mechanical laws of karma. But for the devotee, for those who are like sincerely aspiring to be devotees of God, and then the suffering, it's my understanding, my understanding from Bhagavatam, for the devotee who's still, still gets distracted, it's not just the mechanical laws of karma. So then there, I think the imagery of Krishna banging on the head with the flute is appropriate.
Thank you. Makes sense.
Bhakti and Rosa.
The purport was very dense.
It's very dense.
Like any section could be a discussion.
Yeah. Any sentence could be like a whole course.
I want to ask you to read it again, but instead of the whole thing, there was a specific portion that mentioned nature. Is there any way that you could read that portion again? Because it felt poignant, but I can't remember the words.
Okay. All right. We'll see
towards the end.
Towards the end, the particular mention.
Would it be okay if you reread it?
Well, the entire purport is dense. It's a little long. I encourage everyone to read it.
Okay.
And okay, that well, okay.
And the way I remember it was something like nature is manifest from Krishna, right? Or from Rama.
I know which part you're talking about, and okay, it's a beautiful part. Okay, and I think I do know precisely which part. But it's a matter of finding it. Okay. Yeah, here we go. All right. So I found it. He is the root cause of all causes. That's Sarva Karana Karanam, cause of all causes. The root, the essential cause of all causes. The substratum of all existence. He is the root cause of all causes, who are the predominating and predominated agents of the universe. So, okay, we'll go a little bit. That can refer to a few things, but us, that we are predominating, because we haven't noticed there's forces not under our control that are predominating, like the sun rises when it rises, and we have catastrophic weather or nice weather, or we've got all sorts of bodily becomes old. We're predominated. We're also predominating. We are all little gods. God means controller. God means controller. No, we're not the Ishvara Parama Krishna Ishvara. So Krishna is the Parama Ishvara. He's the supreme controller. In case we haven't noticed, we're not the supreme controller. As we like to say sometimes, if I'm the supreme controller, the omniscient, omnipresent, yes, omnipotent, supreme entity, how come at least 3 times per week I'm not able to find my car keys? It's an existential question, yeah. So that just kind of torpedoes all of this I am God stuff. But we are gods with a small g, just like, okay, like to Manny, you're God. You are, but Manny's one of Rachel's dogs, right? We have our sphere of control. To our pets, we're gods. We have our sphere of control. So we're predominated and we're predominating. He is the root cause of all causes, who are the predominating and predominated agents of the universe. I'll just put it. Even fractions of a sentence can be unpacked to someone. The glance of his projected fractional portion. Should I go into that?
Yeah.
Okay. So that the glance of his projected fractional portion, that refers to not Krishna, but Krishna's, like Vishnu is the expansion of the expansion of the expansion of the expansion of Krishna. And just by Vishnu's glance, Vishnu is the metacosmic supersoul. Just by Vishnu's glance, the entire universal creation manifests. Okay. So the glance of Krishna's projected fractional portion in the sacred originating water, this relates to the causal ocean. Need to get into Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. There's the causal ocean, okay? Mahavishnu is lying on a causal ocean. The glance of his projected, this is not the ABCs. Hello, this is not the ABCs, okay? This is like post-doc. Okay, so it really is. So again, it's assuming a lot, but whatever we understand or not, we can be transformed and purified. The glance of a projected fractional portion in the sacred originating water vis-a-vis the personal oversoul or Paramatma, we talked about Paramatma, gives rise to a secondary potency, nature, who creates this mundane universe, right? So there's the spiritual potency, and that's Krishna's Satchitananda, absolute beautiful form. Then there's the marginal potency, that's us, the living entities. Marginal potency means we can choose our original spiritual nature, or we can choose matter. Sometimes marginal potency is compared to like the beach. Sometimes the beach is covered by water, and sometimes the beach is like land. Okay, but then there's this other potency, dead matter. There's the other potency, dead matter. I'm simplifying it, but yeah, I'm simple. And I encourage everyone to read this completely. At the same time, kind of like we'll get more if you first read Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita 3 times. Hare Krishna. Okay, I'm not joking, but I'm not saying don't read it. Just like don't expect to. Yeah. Okay. Nature, who creates this mundane universe, this oversoul's intermediate energy brings forth the individual souls analogously to the emanated rays of the sun. All right, so the super soul, the Paramatma, is when we say the supreme facilitator, we can talk about Krishna. But Krishna really he doesn't involve himself in the material energy. He's dancing with the gopis and like that. And so through the super soul, he's the supreme facilitator. And Krishna says that in Bhagavad Gita. We quoted the verse. Krishna says, so the super soul facilitates our desires. He'll facilitate through the material energy to the extent we have material desires. He'll facilitate through the spiritual energy to the extent that we have truly spiritual, godly desires. Analogous to the emanated rays of the sun. Okay. Okay. Now again, I'm just sharing whatever drops. I'm not saying, I have a keen grasp on everything here, but whatever realizations have. And I have read Sri-Brahma-Samhita several times. And this conversation moves me. It's probably been about a decade since I read it cover to cover. So I'm inspired to read it again soon. So we gave that example in one of the classes yesterday, the rays of the sun, right? So just like here it is, let's say at 7 a.m. this morning, I could say the sun is coming into David Wolf's living room, temple room. True, because the sun rays are non-different from the sun. It's true. But the sun rays are not exactly the same as the sun. When I say the sun's coming in to my house, I'm not saying the sun globe is coming into David Wolf's house. The sun globe is 1,400,000 times the volume of the earth. It's not going to fit in this house. Okay, so the sun rays, they're not completely different from the sun, and but they're the same in some ways. The sun rays emanate heat and light, just like the sun globe. Quantity is different. So similarly, we are like rays of Krishna. We are eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. And so Krishna, whether he's playing his sweet sounds from his flute or banging us on the head with the flute, or the laws of karma, it's always encouraging us, come on, return to your original blissful nature. Join me. We're waiting for you. Come and join us now. Hello. We're waiting for you. Come and join us now. We chose that as a theme song. I don't know if that band in 1969 was inspired, but I'm assuming they were. So Krishna's saying, we're waiting for you. Come and join us now. Oh, great, so we're like Krishna. We're eternal, full of bliss and knowledge and power and beauty and purity and love. That's who we are. At the same time, that could be missing. So I'm God. I'm the all-pervading Godhead. I have a toothache though, and how I need to make an appointment with the dentist, and where's my car keys, and like that. So we're not completely different from Krishna. We're just like Krishna has an eternal form of bliss and knowledge. So do we. And at the same time, we're not exactly the same, in the same way that the sun rays are not exactly the same like the sun. So I believe that's the analogy that Bhaktisiddhanta is referring to. So I appreciate so much, Rosa, you moved us to go, because any fragment of a sentence from this whole purport, we could expand into a series of classes.
I feel like I have a further question.
Yeah.
But I need to ask for my patience, right? Because I need to read that again to ask my question.
Oh, yeah.
Can you point it out to me?
What I just said?
Yeah, where's nature? Right there.
The bottom of that page and the top of that page.
Okay. Gives rise to a secondary potency, nature, who creates this mundane universe.
Secondary means inferior.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, again, the chair is inferior to us. Like if we want to pick up the chair and move it, we can do it. If I want to walk, but the chair doesn't have consciousness. The chair's not thinking or desiring. I want to be over there. It's dead matter. That's what it means, secondary or inferior.
This oversoul's intermediate energy brings forth the individual souls. I guess it's that second sentence that I'm trying to understand, and where this comes from. My attraction to this is because I've been thinking a lot about how nature is so attractive to me. And
Yeah.
I've had a conversation with you about my considerations of, is that just sense gratification, the fact that I like to go out and like walk in the woods and creeks and mountains and all these different things,
Yeah.
because it's material nature. I'm just thinking about this, the oversoul's intermediate brings forth the individual souls. But from what you were saying, is an energy to bring, the super soul brings us understanding of it, or that.
Yeah, there's so many places in Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, there's entire chapters about how to realize self and God through nature. Krishna says, Rasoham apsu konteya, I am the taste of water. Prabhasmi sasi suryayo, I'm the light of the sun and the moon. So when we taste water, light of the sun and the moon. Shabdake, I'm the sound in ether. Any sound, we get to be reminded of God. Because it's like, you have your nature, Rosa. You have your nature. Rachel, Damayanti, we all have our nature. So whenever we say nature, there's a person whose nature it is. So to love nature, then we can be in the question, whose nature is it? And then that can bring us to Ishvara Parama Krishna, the personality of Godhead. There's many places. Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter, 9th chapter, 10th chapter, 8th chapter. Bhagavatam, there's entire chapters of realizing the supreme in nature. And yes, it's so, so it's just like, it's about our kind, it's like, it's something, from Krishna's point of view, everything's spiritual. And from the point of view of the pure devotee of Krishna, everything's spiritual. But we don't want to imitate that. Stavaraj and Game Deki, Nadeki Taramurti. Sarvajahaya Nidya, Ishta Deva Sporti. That the pure devotee, like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, Srila Prabhupada, they're seeing everything as spiritual. When Srila Prabhupada came on the Jaladuta to New York, he wasn't saying, there's no devotees here. He was saying, oh, New York metropolitan area, there's 14 million devotees of Krishna. I mean, they haven't realized it, but I'm here in co-creation with Krishna to support awakening. So, yeah. So it's about consciousness. So let's say if we're in Rajasic consciousness and we're in nature, it's just like, whoa, I can invest this, and we can tear down this whole trees and build condominiums. I could make $2 million a year here. It's great. Okay, let's say someone in Sattvic consciousness. Oh, nature, everything's harmonious with God's plan. Okay, but it's a transit. Oh, nature. Or someone can go into nature. This is a great place to smoke a joint. Okay, it's not like, is nature material or spiritual? It's going to go into nature just like, wow, God's nature is so beautiful. Like that. Okay, then that's bhakti. That's transcendental. So I think we'll bring the class and discussion to close, and I kind of suspect that as post-class we'll continue in this mood of discussion. Thank you all for there's Rukmini wrote a chat. Rukmini wrote, there's a distinction between Krishna's personal nature versus earthly nature as we know it. Thanks for that distinction, Rukmini. Sri-Brahma-Samhita ki. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur ki. Srila Prabhupada ki. Hare Krishna.